It was authored by Congressman Adam Schiff, chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, a Democrat from Burbank. He joins us from Washington. So, Congressman, this has been correlated with what happened after the Watergate scandal with Richard Nixon. There were laws passed to constrain the administration, or I should say the executive branch. Does that fall into that category?
Very much so. After Watergate, Congress responded by establishing new committees to oversee the intelligence agencies, by setting up offices of Inspector General and protecting whistleblowers, as well as reforms to protect the independence of the Justice Department and reform campaign laws. We need to do the same thing now. And the Protecting Our Democracy Act not only expedites congressional subpoenas, but also stiffens penalties when a president uses White House grounds or federal employees as an adjunct of their campaign, or violates the Emoluments Clause by enriching themselves from foreign powers. It attempts to correct a lot of the abuses we saw in the last 4 years and make sure that we safeguard our democracy going forward.
Do you have the votes in the Senate?
We have the votes if we didn't have a filibuster. And so we are very much in the same situation as the John Lewis Voting Rights Act and the Right to Vote legislation, H.R. 1. So we really do need either an end to the filibuster or a carve-out for bills that are essential to our democracy. If the Republicans are going to carve out a hole in the filibuster to stack the Supreme Court with justices, surely we can carve out the protection of voting rights and our democracy.
You're on the January 6th Commission. Mark Meadows, the former chief of staff, has says he will not cooperate. What comes next?
Well, first he said he would cooperate, and he gave us thousands of documents. Now he says he won't cooperate, and having said that the information he gave us wasn't privileged, he's now trying to claim it's privileged. So he's tying himself in knots, evidently, to please the former president. That's not a good reason to ignore your lawful obligation to appear when subpoenaed. He did not. He'll be held in criminal contempt.
Let's talk about Devin Nunes. He's the former chair of the Intelligence Committee. You've shared the gavel with him. Initially, you had a pretty good relationship. Then it all went south during the Trump administration. The Republican from the Central Valley, he's decided not to run for re-election. I'm just wondering what you thought of that.
Well, it's a strange turn of events. On the one hand, to have a ranking member on the Intelligence Committee leave to form a media organization. But look, that's his decision, and I hope he knows what he's getting into. Many who've gone to work for Donald Trump end up not getting paid, and so he's got to go into it with his eyes wide open.
True. He also had reapportionment to deal with, that is the redrawing of district lines. The problems your party is facing in the next midterm elections are certainly substantial. There's the historic nature of midterm elections, not very kind to the party in power, or at least in the White House. But now we have an inflation rate that is the worst in 40 years.
Well, first of all, I think we have a better shot at holding the majority than most people give us credit for, and I say that for a couple of reasons. The first is that historic trend in which the party of the president loses seats in the midterm depends on another trend which didn't materialize. And that other trend is that when that president is elected, that they sweep into office lots of members of their party. In fact, when Joe Biden was elected, we lost Democrats in the House. So we've already had that correction. Nonetheless, it will be challenging, as you say, mostly challenging because Republicans are gerrymandering maps in many of the red states. And that will be a real hurdle for us to overcome. But we will also have, I think, the most powerful positive agenda any party ever had to run on, having passed the rescue plan, having passed the bipartisan infrastructure bill, and when we passed Build Back Better. That will be equivalent to the New Deal. It will help millions and millions of Americans. It already is. So we'll have a powerful positive agenda to run on. If the Republicans should take over, frankly, I'm far less concerned about my being the ranking member of the Intelligence Committee than I am that they will overturn the next presidential election should they control the House.
Adam Schiff, member of Congress, the chair of the House Intelligence Committee, Democrat of Burbank, thanks for taking the time.
Thank you.